Welcome to the Sales Navigator Live Show with Stan and Bryn. Join LinkedIn expert and sales professional Bryn Tillman and me, Stan Robinson Jr., Chief Coaching Officer here at Social Sales Link, as we bring you the best tips and strategies for leveraging Sales Navigator for your sales success. Enjoy the show. Hey, Bryn.
Hi, Stan. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. Nothing like technology. I think we're thinking the same thing at the same time.
Agreed.
So,
I think
yep,
we'll coordinate better next time. I'm sure it
yeah.
was my fault. I'll
No,
take
no, not that time. I saw the timer. And those of you who are listening to the podcast have no idea what we're talking about, which is just fine. It's just fine.
Yes.
So today we're going to be talking a little bit about engaging with buyers using Sales Navigator. Um, uh, and one of the things we haven't really talked much about is, up to this point, is InMail. So I wanted
Mhm.
to take a little bit of time to touch on InMails because we really haven't talked that much about them. And we'll also talk about some other ways that you can engage, because Sales Navigator continues to make things better in terms of our ability to see what people are posting and comment right within the platform and even tag people right within the platform, which you couldn't always do. But I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. Bryn, uh, this is a quick aside, but I know you've been doing some traveling, some
Mhm.
exciting trips. So welcome back.
Thank you. I'm happy to be back.
Yes. All right. All right. So engaging. I mean, Sales Navigator is a powerful platform for finding the people that you're looking for using very, very specific filters. And then the next thing, once you've found them, is to start to reach out to them. And InMail, as I mentioned, is something we hadn't talked about at
Mhm.
all. And Bryn, um,
Why don't we start with some stats? Let's
sure.
start with some stats and then I'll move in, or we can move in to how to get the best response. I've got some ideas on that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Because,
let's talk about some of the stats on InMail and why it might make sense. Well, first of all, actually, let's talk about what InMail is.
yes.
InMail is a paid messaging. A lot of people call regular messaging in LinkedIn InMail. It is not, right? So InMail typically contract you'll get 50 free. Sometimes there's 150 a month. It just depends on the contract of the company, but generally it's between 20 and 50 a month that you have free. That you have, sorry, not free, that you have included in your premium Sales Navigator subscription that you can use to reach out to folks. It looks different. It comes in differently. It has a subject line where regular messaging does not. There is at the bottom, there is I accept this or I decline this. I'm not interested in this particular InMail. So there's a lot that goes into. So I would like to talk today about statistics and what makes a good InMail. I've got some ideas. I know
Yeah.
you have a whole bunch of statistics ready for us. Um,
Yeah.
but I also want to talk about like when to use this. InMail, in my opinion, is rarely your first step. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just quickly, I'll go through. We want to engage with content. We want to follow people. We want to get warm introductions. We want to connect with people because we've engaged on their content and we want to follow more of their content. InMail is when all else fails. I don't have any shared connections, or my shared connections are my competitors, so I can't ask for introductions. They're not sharing any content. I don't have any content to share with them. I'm not doing a poll right now to ask them to vote. I mean, there's like a lot of other things we could do. And then we go to InMail. But here's the thing that's pretty cool about InMail is if you do a good job with InMail, let's say you have 50 and you send out all 50 and 20 people accept or respond to your in-mail, you now have another 20 back. You get those credits back. So if you do a good job, you really almost have an unlimited amount of in-mails available to you. And the last thing is it rolls over month for 3 months. So if I have
Mhm.
50 in January and I don't use them, and 50 in February, and then 50 in March, and I haven't used any of them, I have 150 in March. But if I don't use any of them in April, I have 150. I'm never going to get
Mhm.
more than the 3 months rollover.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. So as you said, it looks different, it operates different, and you led into what I was going to ask about was the when to use them and the part about it being the last thing that you want to do, not the first. Just because you can reach anyone using InMail doesn't mean that you should, because
Right.
so many better opportunities for you to start to build a relationship than an InMail, which even though it performs better than a just a pure cold email, it's still a lot of times perceived like I don't know who this person is, and I'm getting this message from them.
Mhm.
Now, LinkedIn did do, as Bryn mentioned, a lot of research. They looked at all of the in-mails that were sent in 2022, and in-mails are 3 times more likely to be accepted than a cold call,
Mhm.
and 6 times more likely to be accepted than a regular cold email. So that's great. So statistically speaking, it can work out well, but as Bryn said, please don't use an in-mail as your first outreach to someone, because there's so many better ways to start building a warm relationship. So just don't start with it. Now, uh, the the other thing about in-mail, which I learned recently, is if someone has an open profile
Mhm.
and you haven't found another way to reach with them, so you're down to the in-mail option. Because nothing against in-mails. It's just that engaging with content is a much better way to start the relationship. Um, but if someone has an open profile and you're sending them an in-mail, won't use up one of your in-mail credits. Now, you won't know that until you actually start to compose the in-mail.
Mhm.
At that point, you'll see that the person has an open profile. They won't ask you for a subject line, which is the first clue. And you can
Right.
send them the message, not use up one of your in-mail credits.
Yeah, it's interesting because it will say in mail. Like the send button, I believe, still says it's like an in mail button, but it does come across as a regular message, not as an in mail message with that subject line, as you mentioned. So I think that's a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, it
I
would be
think,
nice if we could search by uh, open profiles because you can send unlimited amount. But that said, again, the still it's not going to help your cold outreach if you
yeah.
have no other engagement. So I think that's important. Are there any other stats you want to mention before I jump into some of the things that we could do to have a more successful response within mail?
The, there were a couple that I thought were really interesting. And one, members are 78% more likely to accept your in-mail if you view their LinkedIn profile first.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, um, there, there are a couple of reasons. Number one, they see who's viewed their profile. But number two, it also presumes that when you're viewing their profile, you're taking information from their profile, hopefully, and using it to personalize the email.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So
that's
that,
very
yeah,
important.
yeah, that's the real power of it. Um, They also mention the power of a personal brand. Members are 87% more likely to accept your in-mail if you have a complete LinkedIn profile.
And it's a resource, not a resume.
Yes.
They don't say that, by the way.
Yeah,
I added
exactly. They
that. That
never.
is not part of the statistic. It's just part of our experience that when your profile is a resource, so many more folks will accept your connection request and accept emails.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it should be a customer-centric profile, not one that looks like you're looking for your next career opportunity.
Yeah, I
That's
love that. It's funny. I love I never think in customer centric. I always think value centric, but you're right. You want to make value centric customers. This needs to be a value to your customer, to your prospect. And so when we talk, that's a really good way to look at this. I always say value centric, but to whom is it value? Right. And
uh,
so the fact that you're saying customer centric, this is written from the perspective of your prospects, of your customers, of it.
customer.
And I actually really love that mindset around it because that's one of the mistakes we make as salespeople is we share content, and our profile is content that we want them to know about. So we're gonna right. We want them
Yeah,
to know this, but when it's customer centric, I'm like my wheels are turning. Now it's really about what they want to consume and what will
yeah.
lead them to our solution because it matters to them. So I love these takeaways that I get when we work together. That's awesome. I love that. I love that.
Yep, the last two things that I'll mention, one was it's one of those stats that makes sense once you know it, but I wouldn't have thought about it. It's people who started a new position within about the past 90 days are 62% more likely to accept your in-mail. Now, the nice thing is that with they're not called spotlights everywhere, but the point is that Sales Navigator can show you who has recently started a job.
Mhm.
So if people have recently started a job or they've been promoted, they're looking to make changes. They want to make an impact.
Mhm.
And a lot of times they're more open to new ideas, which may come in the form of an in-mail. And I guess
Mhm.
that's one of the things driving the fact that people who are new to a position are more likely to open and look at your in-mail. And the same is true of people who are more active on LinkedIn. I think the figure is 45%. People who are active on LinkedIn are 45% more likely to open your in-mail.
So I guess the tip here is when you're doing your search, check the box of people that are active,
Yep.
right? Now you're going to have a much higher response rate if you're already going after the 45% is 100% of the people you're going after. Did that
Yes.
did that make sense?
And now, because you're reading my mind again, that's exactly what I was going to mention is with Sales Navigator, you can see who's posted on LinkedIn in the past, time period. So it's perfect. You can,
Yeah, I
I
think
keep
it's
calling them
posted right
spot
in the last 30 days. Is
30
that right?
days. Exactly.
Yeah.
In the last 30 days. And I keep calling them spotlights in terms of where you find them, but
It's
the
more.
point is the filter, says people who posted in the past 30 days.
Yeah, it was spotlights 2 weeks ago. I forget what it's might be on
It's
its own now. I have to go look.
Yeah, it keeps changing.
Yeah, and
But
actually, some of you listening will have spotlights. You'll be like, "What are they talking about?" It's right here. And some of you won't have spotlights. So, as LinkedIn Sales Navigator rolls out this new platform, which should totally be rolled out by February, things are going to keep changing. And then my guess is things will keep changing anyway. So,
anyway, exactly. Exactly.
yeah. Yeah.
So good.
So
Yes.
I
And
have a couple of ideas I'd love to bring in. So one of the things that we talked about was um, like, don't come in and pitch. I don't know if we talked about. We always talk about don't
Yeah.
pitch. We talk about don't connect and pitch. Definitely don't spam. Like that's what this would be if you are starting with the pitch. So we have to have a relevant reason. You need this to be customer centric or value centric, right? The message needs to be about them, for them, and it has to feel like we picked them for this message. So I'm just going to run through a couple ideas, then you, if you want to throw out a couple of ideas. Number one, I'd like to interview you for an ebook, a live stream, content that's relevant, right? Number two, recently put out a poll and would love your one click vote. You could put a link to the poll if you wanted
Mhm.
to in the
Mhm.
in-mail. Um, I mean, there's asking them to contribute to something is typically a great way to use this. You can also start socially. Now, there are times where someone may use InMail where I would use a connection request. So you
Mm,
have to determine, but it might be I really enjoyed your content. I'd love to, I'm following you. I'd love to learn more. Can I ask, who else do you follow? So you could start a conversation there and really make it social. Or I see on your LinkedIn profile you follow these folks. Do you follow this person? Right. So you can use it to start a little bit more of a social conversation. Those I typically will do it as a connection request, but quite honestly, as I've hit my 30,000, it's not a bad idea for me to start doing it using my in-mail that way for sure.
how about that?
So
How about that? Yes.
yeah. So
Yes.
that's one thing to think about. I also, you mentioned make it personal. That subject line should be personal too. And it's got to be compelling. And HubSpot has a whole, if you actually Google HubSpot email headlines, you're going to get, or personalized email headlines. There's a ton in there that will give you ideas. It's some that we've used, but it's hyper personalized. However, now with AI and all these outreach, when you have like
Mm,
Stan, comma, thought you'd like this, people actually now think that's spam. So hyper personalized, but you may not use their name
yeah. Yes.
there, right? And then use their name only once in the beginning. When you stick their name in the middle of a message, people know that this is AI or bots now, right?
Mm,
So it's
good
like,
point.
Stan, here's all these great things that are happening. And I know you, Stan. You would, nobody writes like
That
that
way. Nobody
naturally.
yep.
But these AI bots add the name in the middle so they think, oh, this really must not be a bot, but it is.
But it is. Yeah.
So make it personal, have a compelling subject line that's relevant to them. You could, I'm just going to throw a couple out, and be careful with this first one that I'm going to say, but mention a shared connection. Hey Stan, Bob Woods sends his regards. Hey Stan, I was talking to Bob Woods. Your name came up. He says hello.
Mm.
It could be, um, if we had, let's say it's an alumni, like I could say, which I wish I were your alumni, but it's not smart. But I could reach out and say, "Hey, fellow Johnson and Wales graduate," if they are right, or if like my son is Rutgers, so I could go, "Are you?" question mark. Are you dot 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 using LinkedIn? But like you find like what is the oorah, right? What is it that they say? You create that kind of personal connection. Another one that you could do um, could be, I loved your post on this. Congratulations on your new role. Because in Sales Navigator, if we've saved leads, they don't have to be a first degree connection for us to see new roles or alerts, right? So that new role from a second degree or beyond, that could be an in-mail opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's
Um,
one of the things that's powerful about Sales Nav. You don't have to be directly connected to them to see relevant activity.
yeah, now I'll tell you something, and I don't know if this is still completely relevant or when because this is a little old, but to, uh, the statistic is um, I think it was Boomerang, which is a Gmail plugin. It's actually kind of cool where like if someone doesn't respond to your email in a set number of days, it'll come up to remind you to reach out
Do
again.
something else.
But the ideal email is 50 to 125 words. So in mail, they've identified that more than 50% of messages are open on smartphones. So you want to
Mm,
make sure that you are in that 50 to 125 words, not just because Boomerang says it, but because more than half, I think we're at 58% of activity is on
it's
mobile.
on mobile. Yep.
So keep those in mail short.
Short.
So
And
I have a little checklist if we want to close it out. Do you have anything you want to add before we bring it
just,
in?
yeah, just ideas that other folks have found helpful with in-mails. If you've got a very, very targeted, specific webinar that you want to
Mm,
invite someone
good.
to that's
I like that.
purely value, that's one way to do it. And same thing with exclusive events, which may be relevant for executives, but they're exclusive and which appeals to some people. The only reason you're getting invited to this event is because you're a C-suite. The only people who will be there will be your peers. So there's value in it. They know they're not walking into a networking meeting where they're going to get prospected by everybody.
Yeah,
So those,
can I kind of piggyback on that? Because I didn't think of it and it's brilliant. But if you have a few people that are already registered, you can look up who they know and say, can I mention that you're registered and invite these folks, right? And so those are
wow,
in-mail opportunities. Joe Smith said you might get value from this upcoming event.
yeah,
So
that is a
I
great idea.
said in the don't use their name in the subject line, but a shared connections name is pretty powerful,
Hmm.
right?
Great.
Stan Robinson, Bob Woods said, right? So Stan gets an in-mail and says, Bob Woods says hello. He's going to read it.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
it's
So I
great
love that.
information.
So I think, yeah. Oh, we just keep getting like popcorn ideas off of this.
Good deal. So let's see. You said you had a couple of things you checklist, and we can wrap up with.
I wrote down a checklist of things to do. Let me pull it up. I forgot. So, number one, have a compelling subject line that's not too clever and isn't using their name.
Mhm.
Number two, make it about them. Focus on what's of value to them, not just what we want them to know. The goal of this is to get a response, to start a conversation. So make sure it is written in a way that's asking for a response, right?
Yes.
Like if they don't know what to
What to
do, they'll
do?
do nothing. So
Great
it needs
point.
to have a call to action and a reason for them to respond. Keep it short and tight and make sure there's a clear, I guess this is almost like response, but a next step, a call to action, right?
Action.
What do I do now? I read this. What should I do? Now, recognize they're going to have an accept or a decline type of button. We want them to accept. So even if, or we want them to respond. So you could say, if you're available, please let me know. If not, just say no thank you in comments, because I'll give your seat to someone else. So now, even if they're not interested, we get the credit for the in-mail back.
Yep. Yep. That's a great idea. Great idea. Awesome. Well,
All right, let's
Bryn,
bring this in for a landing.
yes, thank you. That was it. We really just wanted to take some time to talk about in-mails because we hadn't covered them up till now. And as always, I get a bunch of takeaways from this. So, Bryn, thank you much. And
Thank
to,
you. We'll talk to you
yep.
soon.
All righty. Bye
Bye.
now. Thanks for listening. And join us again for more insights on Sales Navigator and social selling strategies that will differentiate you from your competitors and accelerate your sales success. In the meantime, you can go to socialsaleslink.com/library for free content on LinkedIn, Sales Navigator, and social selling.